today we are making the chili recipe that broke the internet. We did an authentic Texas chili. It came from my grandparents' cafe and has gone totally viral on our blog, Urban Cowgirl. People have won chili competitions with it, they've been commenting, and just a few people said, hey, I wish there was a video on this so I could see a visual representation of everything that you're doing. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. I'm gonna show you guys the visual tips and tricks to get the most out of this Texas brisket chili. I'm also gonna share some things that are gonna surprise you, like the fact that there's no jalapenos in this recipe, and that Texas chili powder is very different than the chili powders that are out there if you don't live in Texas, and why I never make my own chili powder. I think that's kind of a shocker. So I'm gonna share all of that with you today. Let's get started right now. So this recipe starts off with just a regular brisket. This is exactly how it comes from the store. You guys know that I use prime brisket whenever I smoke a brisket, but the brisket chili doesn't really require that at all. This is just a choice brisket from Walmart. It's a big guy. So this is something that I teach my kids. It's a little song, and I think it really helps to show you guys the difference. This is the one side of the brisket where you're gonna see most of the fat, and then this is where you can kind of visually see the difference between the point and the flat. For this recipe, I only use the flat, and I save the point to smoke, to make Texas Twinkies, whatever. So we're gonna separate it about right here. This is the brisket point. It points right up here. This is the flat, it's flat. This is the song we sing to our boys. This is the brisket point, this is the flat. Open it up and you'll find all the fat. Close it up and give it a roast. Serve it with onions and pickles and toast. So the flat is what we're using today. Let's just cut this in half. You don't have to be super precise. Okay, so this is gonna be saved for some other smoking project. So here's the flat that we're gonna be working with. The rest of it, we're gonna save for another project. And I'm gonna show you how we're gonna dice this up. What we want is little cubes, and then we'll season all of those and treat them all like a little tiny piece of steak. So let me show you how I dice this up. I'm just gonna take a really sharp knife. Obviously I have all chef knives because I'm a chef, but the one thing that I do recommend is this really nice knife sharpener that we have found. I'm gonna link it below. I have sharpened these right before I made this video, so you're gonna see how effortless this is. Okay, so I'm gonna start here, and I'm gonna start by making slices. I think they'll kind of remind you of like really thick cut bacon. So, something like this, a manageable piece to cut into little squares. There you go. We're gonna do that with all of it. This fat on the fat cap here, it's gonna render off. You could take a little bit off of it if you want to, but it's not necessary because you can just pour the fat off after we are done browning it, or leave yourself enough fat to flavor the chili and pour the rest of it off. I'm gonna take each of these strips and I'm gonna cut little cubes. I could probably line some of them up and do it all at the same time. But what I'm focused on, just pretend like you're using the brisket to get little tiny pieces of steak, because that's what we're gonna treat it like. And that's how we're gonna get the most flavor. So now we just wanna cut into 1/2 to 1 inch cubes. You're gonna do this to the entire brisket flat, and then just transfer it onto a cutting board where we're going to season it. Next, we're gonna get out a couple strips of thick cut bacon. Now we're gonna chop these up and render them down in our chili pot to brown the beef in. Bacon fat is the secret to all of my gumbos and my chilies. It provides this smoky depth of flavor as a foundational part of the dish, and a place where most recipes just call for cooking oil, so it's like an extra splash of flavor. Okay, now let's season the morsels of beef that are going to become the chili meat. We're gonna season it just like a perfectly juicy steak, so that means starting with kosher salt and good quality black pepper. Now for two ingredients that beef absolutely loves, and of course that's onion powder and garlic powder. To me, onion and garlic enhance and bring out the flavors of beef while still honoring its space as the most important flavor in the dish. So we're gonna give it lots of onion and garlic love. Since we've done such a good job seasoning the beef, you're gonna see that it sears just like a little piece of steak. Speaking of garlic, now we're gonna mince up a little bit of the fresh garlic that's gonna go into the chili. I'm just prepping the ingredients for the chili. So we're gonna do 5 fresh garlic cloves, and I'm putting them through a garlic press because you'll see that it's just the thinnest little bits and it completely melts into the chili. That's what I like about this technique. And we'll just slice it off there with a knife. And of course, if you don't have a garlic press, it's okay to go ahead and mince this, or you can put it through a tiny food processor. Now let's prepare a little bit of chopped onion for the base of the chili just by giving it a small dice. Now we're just gonna reserve this in a bowl for when we start the actual chili itself. Okay, over about medium heat in our big chili bowl, we're gonna go ahead and pour in the bacon and then just start rendering the fat out of it. Now that we've got a good amount of the bacon fat out of the bacon, we're gonna go ahead and put it into a small bowl for later, and we're gonna start browning those little bits of chili meat in the bacon fat. Now, I cannot stress enough how important this part of making chili is, whether you're using this recipe or a recipe of your own. What we want to do is to create this golden brown sear on all of the sides of the meat. This sear is where all of the flavor in the beef is going to be located, and as we make our chili, that flavor is going to dissolve into the broth. You can help this process happen by not placing too much of your meat in the pot at one time. Do it in batches, because if you do it all at once, it tends to gather and the meat steams instead of frying in the fat and browning well. Once all of that meat is seared perfectly, we're gonna go in with the onion in the same pan that has all of the brown bits from browning the meat. Now for extra flavor, we're gonna hit it with a little bit of that minced garlic. We're gonna slowly heat this over low until it's gonna turn translucent and then golden brown. That's when you know you've dehydrated as much water out of the onions as possible, and it's time to start building the chili. Now we're gonna start adding the secret ingredients, of which the most important is our Texas chili powder. Texas chili powder is different than New Mexico chili powder or any ground dried red chilies. It's gonna be a blend of a few different spices, and I have 2 very specific brands that I look for. That's gonna be Maxine and Gebhardt's. This is all available on the blog, of course, in the printable recipe, but I just wanna make sure to emphasize how different Texas chili powder is because it is a blend of several things. I don't personally ever make my own chili powder. I've tried several times and it's flavorless compared to these classic brands. I do like making my own chili paste, but that's usually when I do New Mexico cooking. So I just stick to these classic brands. If you do have a good recipe for your own chili powder, leave it for me below because I will try again. I just have not had good luck. Okay, so after our beef broth or beef stock goes in, we're gonna add in a little bit of dried thyme. I just pinch it in my hands to get it all warmed up and then throw it in the pot with everything else. Now we're gonna finish up this chili. We're gonna add back in the bacon that we reserved from earlier and about a half a cup of strong coffee. So I have a can here of really good quality peeled tomatoes. What I'm gonna do is open them up, and then I'm going to take really clean hands and I'm gonna just break them up gently into my fingers. This keeps things really authentic and rustic, and you'll see that they just melt right into your soup. Okay, now we're just gonna place the lid on and walk away for 2.5 to 4 hours. You can stir it every once in a while if you want, and you are going to be rewarded with this gorgeous beef in this delicious sauce. It's flavored with the chili powder. It's smoky and velvety, and it goes perfect with cheese, onions, Fritos. This is exactly how we do it in Texas, and this is what you want when you're craving chili. So far, we've had like 12 readers that have won chili cook-offs with this recipe, so I'm sure you're gonna have just as much luck as them. It's available on urbancowgirllife.com, and of course, I'm always available down below if you have any questions or concerns. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can cook together again. I'll see you next time. Bye!